Hello art students, today we are going to talk about landscape zones and I am going to give you some drawing tips for your landscape paintings. To get started, I am going to use this plastic transparency sheet to show you the different zones in this photograph that I took of Lake Maggiore in northern Italy. The first zone is called the foreground. It's the area that is closest to us that also has the most detail. So we hear off to the left in the foreground, we see the wooden pilings of a dock. And there's a lot of detail in those pilings because they're pretty close up. We can see all of the cables, we can see what color they are, we can even see some of the texture in those pilings. Next we have the middle ground. It's off in the distance. It's that hillside that's got a whole bunch of buildings kind of nestled in the hillside and then a big castle up on the top. So we can see some details, but nowhere near as clearly as the details that are in the foreground. Next we have the background, which in this case is this mountain range in the back. And as you can see, it has no details whatsoever. It's just colors. And then last but not least, we have sky. And I am just outlining a little bit to show where some of the edges of those cloud shapes fall. So I am going to finish going over some of those pilings because those are details that I'm going to show in my painting. And I'm just going to capture the contour edges. And now I'm going to show you what happens if I take that plastic transparency and put it on a white piece of paper. So you can see each of those four zones and that it's really just a simplified contour drawing that you're going for here. The foreground is going to have the most detail, and then in terms of color, the colors are going to be the most intense as well. And then as we head into the middle ground, your details are going to be more limited and your colors are going to slowly start to become less intense. And then in the background, you're not going to have any details whatsoever. And your colors are not only going to become even less intense, but will start to fade into the sky if you have sky in your reference photograph. So here is that photograph one more time, so you can be thinking about those zones. And now to get started with your drawing, you are going to find the contour edges of each of the zones in your reference picture. And you're going to start by just outlining in some kind of colored marker of your choice so that you have an easy way to get that contour line drawing started. Now I was lucky because my middle ground literally fell smack dab in the middle of my reference photograph, so I could start with a line that pretty much went through the middle of my paper. You might want to start by finding that middle ground line in your reference picture too. I am going to just make a few quick lines to indicate where those clouds are. I don't want to get caught up in details because I'm going to paint this and I'm going to let the paint create the details for me, but I just want to indicate where those clouds start and stop. One of the things that you get to decide is how many details you want to include in your foreground. So I might decide to take those little boats out later. And then in my middle ground, in those places where there are buildings that are showing, I am not going to draw each of those buildings in. I am going to, again, let the paint do the work. So really with this drawing, I want to just capture the basic contour edges of each zone and give myself enough information that I can use later for my painting.